So what does World War I, LSU, my tomato garden, and sugarcane have in common? Well, watch this week's episode of Growing Some Louisiana History and you'll find out. Stay tuned. Hey folks, welcome back to another edition of Growing Some Louisiana History. I'm your host, David Hubbell, and I'm here to tell you about some of the historic Louisiana seeds I've been trying to grow in my garden for the last decade. I appreciate everybody's already checked this out and subscribed and click that alert bell so that you're aware of all upcoming garden and Louisiana cooking videos that I'll be putting out. So I appreciate that. And if you haven't done so, what's stopping you? Come on, let's go. So the initial few episodes of this series is going to deal really with my tomato garden because I've got a lot of variety of tomato seeds that have been recommended for LSU growers for at least the last 100 years, in fact. In the teaser, I kind of mentioned that my garden has something in common with World War I, and that is because two of the varieties I'm growing, Louisiana Reds and Louisiana Pinks, came out in 1918, or were being developed, I should say, in 1918, the end of World War I. They were also developed by LSU, by C.W. Edgerton. He had been working on these varieties, trying to create a hybrid between Earliana and I think I read anywhere from Acme to Louisiana wilt-resistant varieties. So he worked on these two, and there's a lot of information that came out from the Louisiana Extension Service and growing stations back in 1918 to 1922. So the big key feature about these are that they're very wilt resistant and heat tolerant and for the humid conditions of South Louisiana. So they're perfect also for South Alabama, where I'm at. The days of maturity are listed anywhere from 75 days for the pinks to 80 to 90 for the reds. They're both considered a medium-sized indeterminate tomato. The big difference, of course, really is that, other than the days, that the reds have a dark red color to them and the pinks are a little pinker variety. The pinks are kind of recommended as being like a salad tomato, slicing tomato. They have a good balance of sweetness and acidity and a clean finish is what it was described in the literature. And the reds are also listed as a good salad tomato as well as good for canning. The biggest complaint when these came out, apparently back in the 1920s, is that some of the other varieties, like the Earliana, these put on like maybe 1 to 3 weeks later. And the Earliana was an older variety that grew maybe like in 66 days. So, like I said, anywhere from 75 to 90 days is what these are expected to be when you start to pick them tomato once they go in the ground. I've grown these both in the last couple of years, and I enjoy the flavor of both of them. The pink is listed as having a very small seed cavity and very few seeds. These are scarce in a sense because the big seed companies aren't making these anymore. 100 years ago, 80 years ago, they were much more popular, but you can still find people on the internet that are growing these. So we're going to look at these and see how they're doing outside. So this is the Louisiana Red here. I know it's real easy to tell when I got them all bunched up like this. It's got basically regular tomato leaves. And right next to it, squeezed in there as well, is the pinks. When I put these in the ground, it doesn't seem like they're too crowded, but when they start really growing, they become extremely crowded. The problem I'm seeing really with the reds, so I was noticing at the base down here, I'm not sure if this is going to become a problem for me or not. It looks a little brown. I had to peel off some rotten stuff there. You can see the base of the pinks as well. I've got some on the other side. Actually, the red did not, on the back end, did not survive and had to replant it. So, right off the bat, you can see all these little nodules growing on it too, that I haven't really seen before. Now, up to this point, I do have a few tomatoes on it. So, if they should survive, which I've had them do in the past, they'll be little globe-shaped 3 to 4 ounce tomatoes. Unlike the Creoles we looked at last week, they don't seem to have quite as many flowers on them. And the pinks, let's see, you can see I do have some worm damage as well, but I've sprayed those. The pinks coming up there, I've got some flowers coming in. And I got the flowers coming in up there, but not really all that many. Check the back end. So I planted 2 of each of these. So this is all the pink on the back end. Once again, you see it also has a globe shape to it. More flowers as well. These are also reported as basically your regular tomato leaf type. I remember that I actually like the pink ones, I think a little bit better. Actually, the pink and reds are very good, but the yields aren't really high. I think partly because of the long days. Last year I had a problem with stink bugs. So on these pinks, it seems like the flowers don't seem to really start till they get up higher. That was the big complaint from the LSU, or from the, maybe it was the Mississippi or Louisiana ag reports from back in 1920s, is that a lot of the farmers' complaints were that while the yields were good and they were wilt resistant, is that they did not really bear fruit until much later. In fact, one of the articles says that they kind of like the heat to really start putting on. So maybe that's something I'm seeing here. Really hadn't studied it before, but it looks like, as opposed to the Creole variety from LSU and others, that the tomatoes on these are taking longer to set fruit or flower. The problem with the raised beds, of course, is that trying to put everything in, I originally did the square foot method, but since going back to where I'm using the mostly just composted materials from the yard. So unfortunately, if you get something in beds, they don't always, it takes a while for them to get out. And so usually that's why I switch them between this bed and the one over there. But ideally, when all this used to be the garden, I did it in rows, but due to time and neighbors' branches and trees, it's hard to get a lot of good sunlight back here. So I know all you home gardeners and backyards probably have some of the similar challenges. The connection to LSU is that these seeds were developed at LSU at the growing extensions or agricultural centers or stations back then, as they were called, by C.W. Edgerton, who also later on did a lot of work with sugarcane. So there's the sugarcane tomato connection there. Claude Wilbur Edgerton came from up north and came down to LSU. I think he started about 1908 and retired about 1955, and seemed to be pretty active. It might have been 1950 he retired actually, but sometime he had a pretty good career there, and obviously he did a lot for both the tomatoes and sugarcane. So if you have any opportunities to check out his work, please do so and look online. So if this information has been helpful to you, please subscribe to the David J. Hubbell YouTube page, and you can contact me at rpcajun2r@gmail.com if you have any questions. Oh, don't forget to click that bell down there to be alerted to all upcoming episodes. Obviously right now in this stage the tomatoes are going to be a lot more green, but we'll start seeing the ripening ones, so I'll probably do part 2 of this one as well. Don't forget, leave a comment in the descriptions below if you've been growing Louisiana Reds or Louisiana Pinks and what your thoughts are on them. If you have any suggestions on seed sources, I'll list some that I have in the comments below since they're hard to find. And if you have any questions, like I said, reach out to me and let me know what you think. Appreciate it, and I will see you next week.